Mikolas goes out with a bang as the Cubs tee off on him yet again in perhaps his farewell game as a member of the St. Louis Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafron, a former national radio sports anchor, born and raised in St. Louis and a lifetime Cardinals fan, and I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving you all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app, so download the app today. On today's show, we've got your thoughts and comments on the Sonny Gray situation. Our friend Thomas Gouvain from RedBirdRants.com has 3 potential realistic trade spots for Sonny Gray. So we'll discuss those as well today. But we're going to start with what I'll politely call the whooping at Wrigley that took place on Friday afternoon in what was in all likelihood Mikolas' final start as a member of the St. Louis Cardinals and in a St. Louis Cardinals uniform. It did not go well for Miles or the Cardinals as they got trounced by the playoff-bound Cubs 12-1. Miles, who had pitched very well in his previous 5 starts, was hoping to get one last quality start in before his season ends and before, most likely his time with the St. Louis Cardinals ends. For those who aren't aware, he is going to be a free agent at the end of the season, and unless he decides to sign for something way cheaper, he'll likely have to find work somewhere else if he's going to continue his career in the major leagues. I'm guessing someone will give him a shot, but I believe his time with the Cardinals is over. Just time to turn the page. We don't need to go back and do this again. He's had 7 seasons with the Cardinals. It's time to move on for everybody. So I'm sure he'll find work. I'm guessing somebody will sign him to a 1-year deal for way less than what he's making now. But it shouldn't be in St. Louis. And I prefer it not to be in St. Louis, although the Cardinals are going to be looking for starting pitching. So that's why I'm not completely shutting the book on everything. I'm not going to say 100% it's over, but it should be. Last time pitching at Wrigley against the Cubs, it was another patented Mikolas massacre when the fireworks were popping on the 4th of July in Chi-Town of the Cubs had 6 home runs off of him in an 11-3 rout. It wasn't that bad on Friday, but once again, the Cubs went deep 3 more times against him, including the first inning by Nico Hoerner, who now has a whopping 7 home runs on the season. So it's not like it was just the big boys. Nico took him yard. PCA, who had just 4 home runs since the All-Star break, took him deep for a 2-run shot in that 4th to make it 3-0. 30th home run of the season for PCA, gives him a 30-30 season. And to say that he owns Miles Mikolas would be an understatement. That home run was the 5th time that he's homered off Mikolas in his career. And you're probably saying, hey, wait, hold on. But isn't he kind of a new player? Hasn't really been in the league very long. That's correct. You are on the right path there. He has not been in the league very long. 5 home runs and 9 at-bats off of Mikolas. He was 6 for 8 against him coming into that at-bat after striking out earlier in the game. And of those 6 hits, 4 of them had left the yard. So talk about a guy that is going to be really sad to see Miles Mikolas leaving the St. Louis Cardinals and possibly the division. PCA needs to send him flowers or chocolates or something to see if he can get him to stay in the division because he has owned him. Then in the 5th inning, he had Michael Busch with the solo shot, makes it 4-0. The Cubs would go on to mutilate the bullpen for 8 more runs that included a Seiya Suzuki grand slam off of Chris Roycroft. Suzuki had just 4 home runs since the All-Star break. So really nice to see all the guys on the Cubs who have been ice cold just hitting nukes against the Cardinals pitching staff. The only one missing really was Kyle Tucker. He was the only one that didn't hit one that hasn't been, he's been hurt. So that's a guy that the Cubs are going to want to get going as they head into postseason play. But Mikolas loses his 11th game of the season, 4th straight year that he's had double-digit losses, by the way. And if you're going to turn this ship around, if you're going to turn the Cardinals thing around and rebuild like they say they are going to, then Mikolas just cannot be a part of this, okay? He is synonymous with not winning. I don't have anything against Miles Mikolas as a person. Teammates seem to love him. He's very quotable for members of the media, which is fun because some of these guys can be pretty dry. And early on in his career, he wasn't like that bad. He was unexpectedly pretty darn good when he came over from Japan. What was that, 2018? And he had 18 wins that season. Like, that's no joke. That's no joke at all. Miles wasn't bad. All-star, finished 6th in the Cy Young voting. All-star again in 2022. He's also a guy that outside of the 2020, 2021 seasons, where he had to have that flexor tendon surgery, would take the ball every 5th day. Very reliable, and there's something to say for that. Injuries happen to pitchers a lot. So, having him available more times than not, that's something. That's definitely something. He also didn't get a ton of run support over his time with the Cardinals, which certainly hurt his overall win total. But the last 3 seasons have been ugly. They've been very ugly. The numbers don't lie. He just has not been very good. Okay. 2023 goes 9-13, 4.7 ERA, led the NL in hits against and tied for 6th in the NL in home runs against. Mo then gives him a 2-year extension after that season worth $40 million. I remember at the time when it happened and they had the whole thing in spring training with the press conference and the talking to him. And I remember going, I guess I kind of understand and I get why they're doing this. But at the same time, I'm like, but he's not really that good. Like, why did we do that? 2024, 10-11, 5.35 ERA, 3rd in the NL in hits against and 6th in the NL in home runs against. And then here in 2025, 8-11, 4.84 ERA, 11th in the NL in hits against, 4th in the NL in home runs against. This is who he is. He gets tattooed a lot. And if I'm rebuilding a team, I don't need a pitcher, as I said earlier, synonymous with losing. I don't need that in my rotation. I would rather have young guys who are learning to become winners and are probably going to lose some games while they figure that out than a veteran who's going to get overpaid and do just as bad. I don't need that. So I think that this will be the end of his time with the Cardinals. Thank you, Lizard King. Thank you for your time served. But, we already got secondhand store Andre Palante to worry about now. I don't need the original here anymore. Okay? Palante's the next one. Now we got to figure out how to make him not suck ass and make him not give up, ungodly amounts of hits and walks. And now we got that problem on our hands, So I don't need a Miles Mikolas to worry about. The offense, not much to mention in the game on Friday, was without Brendan Donovan, who's available for emergencies at this point, but his season's basically over. They know showed getting 1 run on 5 hits, struck out 14 times. Blech. Too lone bright spots. Renolan Gorman going 2 for 4, Jordan Walker driving in the lone RBI, but that was it. One last 12-1 Miles Mikolas massacre to end on. It was very fitting for his career with the Cardinals to end this way. Let me know what you think about Miles and his career as a Cardinal. That extension still is like, did we have to do that? Anyway, your thoughts and comments as far as moving on from Miles, would love to have them. So leave them in the comments section. We're going to sift through some of your comments from our last episode, which had a lot to do with Sonny Gray, his comments, trade situation. So we're going to get into some of that here in just a little bit, plus the 3 destinations that Thomas Govain feels that make a lot of sense realistically for Sonny Gray to get traded to, if he indeed asks for a trade. So we'll talk about all of this coming up next here on Locked On Cardinals. Guys, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something that goes beyond the usual pill, time for you to meet Rougiette Go Long. Now, that's Rougiette Go Long. They come in when you need a little bit of extra. They're there to help. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer, and it's all about confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula so you can go the distance and keep up with your partner. The effects can last up to 36 hours, which means when the time is right, you're going to have confidence all day, all night, and if you're up for it, and you should be, into the next day. The process is very, very simple. You connect with a board-certified doctor. It's 100% online. You don't have to go anywhere. No face-to-face meetings where you feel awkward and like, I don't want to talk about this because who does? But you do it online. And if you are prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. So nothing that's going to stand out and say, hey, this guy's got this. Don't have to worry about that. So if you're ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom, head to Rougiette.com. Use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's spelled RUGIET.com. That's Rougiette.com. RUGIET. Promo code, one word, LOCKEDONMLB, and make sure to use our code. That way they know that we sent you their way. Get back on the field with confidence at Rougiette.com. Thanks again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you enjoy daily Cardinals content, you can follow the podcast on X at @LO_Cardinals. We're also on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at Locked On Cardinals. The comments made by Sonny Gray following his start on Wednesday got the Cardinals chatter all abuzz, right? And for good reason. For the first time since he's been a member of the Cardinals, I, for one, sense the frustration and the unhappiness with the way things have gone in St. Louis. Most of the time when Sonny's doing interviews, he's focused on whatever he did in the game that day or night. It's not about anything outside of that. For the first time, we got to hear him discuss what his future may or may not be with the St. Louis Cardinals. His quotes about coming here to win, expecting to win. That was a big word for him. Winning is very important to Sonny Gray. And the fact that wasn't happening the first 2 seasons of his deal obviously is weighed on his mind a little bit, that he thinks he needs to consider a trade because of the way things are and the direction this team is going in, that he's talked to Chaim Bloom multiple times about the direction of this team in 2026 and that he knows the deal. That was the quote that he said a couple times. We've heard similar stuff from Nolan Arenado about understanding the direction of the team and that he would be more open to a deal this offseason because of it. And fans are understandably frustrated by it. I'm frustrated by it. We just talked about it this past offseason, how this is what they were planning on doing, and the guys didn't really want to go anywhere. So I've got some comments from you guys. We call these the Cardinal Confessions. That way we're not calling you out and making you, where people can yell at you or something. I use whatever it is you commented and then we discuss it. So first one here, you sure can't blame Sonny for going somewhere else. He did his part for 2 years, and a lot of the time it's not money, it's politics. There were a lot of really good free agent pitchers that were available, but no, we can't do that. I am still a big Red Bird fan, but I am getting fed up with the front office. Hopefully the front office will make some better decisions next year. Yeah, I've seen a lot of comments like this, and that's the one thing is there's a lot of you in the comment section that say similar things. So, we're going to kind of answer all of that here. I can't blame you for your feelings towards the front office. I think that until this year, Cardinals ownership has spent plenty of money to produce a winner and gave John Mozeliak plenty of funding to maintain their status among the better teams in the league. There was never a situation where they were going to spend the amount of money that some of these other teams are. That's just not who they are. It's not a major market, but they were, top 15, top 10 payroll for many years. And my problem is that, and I put a lot of this on John Mozeliak. I just do. That most of his decisions in recent years, not through his whole tenure, because there was a lot of successful John Mozeliak was here, but in recent years, a lot of his decision-making has been terrible. These things haven't worked out. He'll tell you that himself. They when they were spending money, like I said, when they were top 10, top 15 payroll, they spent it on guys who didn't work out, didn't end up living up to those contracts. There's a ton of them we could go through. I'm not going to. We can save that for another day when we want to, but like when they found themselves in a spot with, because it's not just that. It's not just who they spent the money on. It's who they kept around as well. When they found themselves in a spot with, an abundance of talent at a certain position, like in the outfield. How long have we heard it's a log jam of talent in the outfield, right? We've heard that over and over. That's been shipped to us for many, many years. They would keep guys who wouldn't pan out so well and trade away guys that went on to do better than they expected, I guess. Mo spoke on the morning after about the Arozarena deal, and they were, cracking a little joke like, hey, if he didn't have Wi-Fi, would he still be here? And it sucks we got to keep falling back to this, but it's a big turning point where people see that and go, this is kind of where things started to go south. Mo said at that time that they had Tyler O'Neill and Randy Arozarena. They wanted to get a young starting pitcher. That was their goal. And he said that they chose the wrong guy to get rid of. It does happen. I'm not expecting whoever's the GM of any team that you root for, they're not going to be perfect. There's going to be deals that don't work. It's just part of being the GM and president of baseball operations. So, there's been some good deals that John Mozeliak has made too. So nobody's perfect. But the problem is that after that deal went down with Arozarena for Matthew Liberatore, and then Arozarena goes on to become what he's been, it kept happening where it didn't matter who we sent away. That guy went on to have some sort of success. Sandy Alcantara goes on to win a Cy Young. Zach Gallen's been very good with Arizona. Adolis Garcia was a stud for the Rangers in the playoffs. Jordan Montgomery was a stud for the Rangers in the playoffs. They won a ring together. Tommy Edman just was a stud in the playoffs for the Dodgers last year. He goes on to win a ring. Year after year, it was former Cardinals shining on the biggest stages, and every time it happened, it feels like multiple slaps to the face, right? To the fan base, that's how it feels. You're like, dude, really? Like watching Garcia and Arozarena in the home run derby against each other a couple years ago, like that was a slap in the face. You're like, look at all these talented guys that used to be in this organization. They're no longer here. And then look at what we're putting out on the field at this time. And meanwhile, the Cardinals also aren't winning anymore. And watching these guys succeed while the Cardinals fall, just salt in the wound over and over. So I get it, and hopefully whatever Chaim Bloom decides to do, that he's a better decision maker when it comes to stuff like this than what Mo has been over the last few seasons, because it's been bad. Here's a couple of different ones. I kind of bundled these together, which views things in a not so positive light for Sonny Gray. Sonny could have left. He wanted to stay. It's hard to feel sorry for him when they begged him to accept the trade. Maybe Sonny should actually pitch like a top of the rotation starter if he wants to win so bad. Let's not act like he is some top shelf number one. He's pitched like a number 3 since he came to St. Louis. A lot of those comments were sent in to me as well. And as I mentioned, this past offseason, I feel like we all knew the drill. They weren't going to pay players to surround Sonny Gray and Nato and Willie with. They just weren't going to go buy top flight players, and we're going to let the younger guys get a chance to shine and step into these roles or crash and burn while doing it. So I agree. They had a chance to leave before the season. Arenado got the headlines because there was a deal in place. He was willing to go to certain teams, had some of these guys come calling and ask about him, but Sonny and Willie out of the gate reportedly said they did not want to be traded and wanted to be a Cardinal. And then, of course, we get Nato, who turns down the deal to the Houston Astros. I will always be curious, what was involved there, like how much money was going to be paid by the Cardinals, what players were coming in return from Houston. I will always be intrigued and wonder what that deal actually looked like. But Nato vetoed it, and Cardinals were stuck with him again. I'm one of those guys who thinks Sonny has been kind of what we thought he'd be. I wasn't expecting, because you remember when they got him from Minnesota, he was, finished second in the Cy Young in the AL. I wasn't really expecting another performance like that from him, but I was expecting him to be decent. The amount of home runs he's given up is the one thing that stands out to me that's really been a problem here, well beyond what I thought he'd be after, what was it? It was like single digit home runs that he gave up with Minnesota, and then he's been in the 20s with the Cardinals in both years. This year, setting a new career high in home runs against. Also, the ERA plus last year, 107, which was a big dip from where he was that year with Minnesota, but still above league average. But this year, he's under league average at 96. So that's disappointing. But I also expected the Cardinals to not just sit on him as the only guy they could trust. I expected them to go sign or trade for someone to go along with Sonny Gray at the top of your rotation. But instead, they surrounded him with Miles Mikolas and Eric Fetty and Andre Palante and Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson. I mean, first off, listen to those names and look at those names. What team is going to win with those guys as the meat of your rotation? Like, that's disgustingly bad. So if you had invested in better options, there were plenty of those guys out there. If you had invested in those and have been able to develop any sort of pitching in your farm system, then maybe things would have been different. But it's not. Now, I don't know what interest certain free agents had in coming to play in St. Louis. I've said for a couple of years now that it's going to be tough to talk free agents into coming to St. Louis. First off, you're not winning like you used to. There's no star power there. Now you've got the crowds dissipating, and it's in the middle of the Midwest. It's not the most ideal place to live compared to a lot of these other markets. Like, it's ungodly hot. They're not going to give you top tier money. I feel like it's going to be a struggle. And I think the Cardinals realize that. And that's why they're starting to focus on, all right, player development. Let's draft guys who have to be with us and then make them into studs and turn this thing around that way. So that's why I agree with what they're trying to pull off. But, when they were trying to get other guys with Sonny Gray, and Mo made that quote where he's like, yeah, these guys wanted to be here. Maybe some other people are like, I'm just not interested. That's a possibility as well. But I can't help but think that they got to be a better sales person and do a better job to get some of these guys to come here. So that's my thoughts on that. Thomas Gobain from RedwoodRanch.com listed 3 teams he thinks could be a realistic good fit for Sonny Gray if he were to be traded. So we'll talk about his latest article coming up next on Locked On Cardinals. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app in any way you feel like that would excite you. I use FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet. So whatever I'm in the mood for, player props, which is great. Player props are my favorite ones. I enjoy those because it makes me pay attention instead of just to the overall game and score. Like, I'm watching for certain things to happen. You can build same game parlays, which is great too, which can really escalate the money, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's up to you. Every game will become more exciting for you with the FanDuel app. It's quick, it's easy, it's the best way to add a little more energy to game day. A lot of great games coming up this weekend. Of course, I'm the most excited about Sunday Night Football, where it is my Green Bay Packers at the Dallas Cowboys as an owner of the Packers. And, we got Micah Parsons now. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Should be a very entertaining game. So I'm looking forward to that one. Are you ready to play? That's the question, though. If so, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out MLB Game Night, every game, every night until the World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis, but on a national scale. You can find MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, the trade is made involving Sonny Gray, which sounds like he's going to be open to it. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, but he'll be open to it. What teams realistically would be in the running for a guy who's going to be a 36-year-old starter next year and is making $35 million? Obviously, the Cardinals are going to have to eat some of that money. If they're going to move him, nobody's going to take the full thing on. It's just not going to happen. But unless Chaim Bloom is a miracle man and can figure it out somehow, I can't imagine that would happen. But Thomas Gobain, you've seen him on the show many, many times, listed in his full free article, which is linked in the information down below and in the show notes. 3 places where he's like, this would make sense. first one, no surprise. We brought it up here before. San Francisco Giants, who were reportedly keeping an eye on him. And clearly they've got money to spend. They just took on that whole Devers contract. They've been looking for star players. They are not afraid to bring in higher priced veterans. Verlander's with them this year. They're fine with that. And I brought this up. Thomas brings it up as well. Very good point. Is that would Sonny be cool being that far away from his home in Nashville? Which is one of the reasons why he chose St. Louis as one of his possible destinations when he was a free agent. He was like, well, I want to be close to home, which is in Nashville. So that would be it's quite a distance to get you out to the coast. So I don't know if that's realistic just because of that, but I don't know. With him being open to trades, maybe he's willing to go to a place like San Francisco, which seems like a good fit. I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be a bad spot for him, but I don't know if that's where he would want to be considering what he wants to do with the family. Second spot he lists is a spot that I thought he would go to during his free agency after Minnesota. I didn't think he was coming to the Cardinals. I thought they were going to try for him. I didn't think he was going to. I thought he was going to go to the Atlanta Braves. I thought that made the most sense. The Braves have had a really rough year this year because of all the different injuries, which led to a rare losing season in Atlanta. But they've got tons of star power coming back. Sonny wouldn't have to be the number one by any means there. They've got a club option for Chris Sale, who was really good outside. He was hurt again this year, but has been really good. But Sonny would be like the 3 or 4 in Atlanta, which is, if you had Sonny Gray on your team, that would be a great spot to have him in, right? They've already got a Spencer Strider who's coming back from injury and has pitched much better here at the back end of the season. Hurston Waldrop was awesome as a rookie for them. Spencer Schwellenbach should be back next year. They've got a tradition of winning. They've got the offense, obviously, with Ronald Acuna Jr., Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Ozzie Albies, who just got hurt at the end of the year, but Michael Harris, Sean Murphy as the catcher, they should be good next year. And Sonny Gray would be a great fit, I think, with the Atlanta Braves. So it makes a lot of sense for both sides. Last one he lists, interdivision possibility one here. He says the Cincinnati Reds. Sonny's been there before, pitched well there before, had a lot of success with them. Another spot where, because he came from there, the Yankees, and went to the Reds. And remember, he had a tough time in New York, back to Cincinnati, Midwest place, and was more comfortable. Obviously, it's close to Nashville, so that makes sense. But another spot where he wouldn't even remotely have to be the top guy. They've got a ton of arms in Cincinnati. Hunter Green, Andrew Abbott, Nick Lodolo, Chase Burns, Brady Singer. They don't have the most money, so if you were to do this trade, $35 million, you're definitely going to eat a bunch of that because they don't have the funding. They're not going to spend that much money on a pitcher. Trading in the division, obviously, is not something normal because you never want to have to, face that guy again all the time. But of the three here, that makes the least amount of sense. I feel like the Reds need help in other areas than starting pitching, but they were in on it when he was a free agent. They were interested in bringing Sonny Gray. So if it's a 1-year deal, we've seen them spend on guys like Frankie Montas on a 1-year deal and spend one and then ship them off if it didn't work out. That's something. I mean, Sonny Gray's got a no trade clause. But, I understand why he listed them as a possibility, but I feel like of the three, that's the one that makes the least amount of sense on the Cardinal side of things. I think the Braves is a perfect fit for Sonny Gray. I think he would thrive there and really enjoy his time in Atlanta if that's something they could work out. I'm actually not sure what the Atlanta farm system is looking like these days. We could save that for another episode, but we could look at that and see what kind of trade could be made. But I'd also like to throw in teams like the Guardians or the Detroit Tigers. I know Detroit's a little more north, and so is Cleveland than Cincinnati. But I feel like those are some possible suitors that wouldn't be such bad places for Sonny to go and are currently winning things. The Guardians have overtaken the Tigers, which has been crazy after they were the best team in the first half of the season. So let me know what you guys think down below. What city, what team makes the most sense for a trade for Sonny Gray and the Cardinals, let me know, and we can use that as some stuff to talk about in our next episode. But enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on X at @LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio, TikTok and Instagram at Locked On Cardinals. Like, subscribe on YouTube, help our channel and love for the Cardinals grow. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason, and we will see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.